Hey, what's up, everybody? Kill here. It is Tuesday afternoon, which means that we are just about 24 hours removed from yesterday's Monday Night Raw. So now that I've had a few hours to digest it, and I will admittedly say I was very tired from work yesterday. Fell asleep through the first run of Monday Night Raw. No fault of the show. Needed to watch the replay to see some things that actually happened and then also be able to form some opinions on it after getting a good night's sleep. So, with that being said, let's get right into it. We've got an opening segment with who else? Triple H and Stephanie McMahon. The Authority open the show. They make some jokes about the Super Bowl, as obviously it was a major sporting news event, a major story for America yesterday. Did some cute playing with the Colorado crowd about the Patriots and Seahawks. Kind of interesting to see just because I don't think the Broncos fans in Colorado are necessarily a fan of either team, so I don't think there's really a heel or face team per se, but whatever. They start again going on about the controversy at the Royal Rumble, which again I don't really understand. There wasn't really much of a controversy, but one thing I can say that they did extremely well was they spun The Rock's interference at the Royal Rumble as something that shouldn't have happened. Now, based on rules in past Royal Rumbles, interference has been a common thing. We've had numerous interferences from people who aren't in the match to eliminate people who are actually in the match. We've had something that comes to mind is Undertaker absolutely beating the living hell out of Maven at the 2002 Royal Rumble. So I mean the logic wasn't entirely there, but I could see how it could be spun that way. So that was well done. So cue a bunch of entrances. We get Daniel Bryan, making his case. We get Seth Rollins making his case. Roman Reigns had come down just a little bit earlier than that to make a case about how nothing should be changed. And what we wind up with is a main event for tonight. We have Daniel Bryan versus Seth Rollins. Wrestling gods clearly know that we need some quality in-ring action, and we're going to get that in the main event tonight, with the winner of that match facing Roman Reigns in the main event of Fastlane for the right to face Brock Lesnar. Couple things that I liked about it, a couple things I didn't like. One, I like the fact that there is some sort of a sincere effort to at least acknowledge the fact that Daniel Bryan is the most popular superstar in the company right now, and that fans were unhappy about how things went down at the Rumble. But the things I didn't like about it, the Royal Rumble, it needs to be a constant. The winner of it needs to be a constant. We can't all of a sudden have the Royal Rumble become this yearly thing of, well, if the guy that the fans want to win doesn't win, then we're going to throw everything into turmoil and we're going to make audibles and change plans. I think that you decide your winner, you stick with it, and you just find a way to work around it. It was especially weird considering last week we had a lot of interview time between Paul Heyman, Brock Lesnar, and Roman Reigns. It seemed like that was really what they were set on, and then to make this abrupt shift, I can't really agree with that. And not only that, but talk about controversy. So at the point that The Rock interfered in the Royal Rumble, the other active competitor was Rusev. So where's he? Because you can make a case that if Dwayne didn't come out and save his buddy, that maybe Rusev would have come in and thrown Reigns over the top rope. So that was just a little bit of a flaw in logic. But hey, it's pro wrestling. Logic doesn't often, come into play when it comes to their storylines. There's half-hearted efforts, but this is just another case of where they didn't go 100% with that. We segue right in to a match between Big Show and Roman Reigns. At this point, I think this is why I started getting tired legitimately, because I did not want to see this on my television screen. I was able to watch through the match, saw, the Rollins interference and JJ Security interference, and Big Show gets the 1-2-3 in the middle of the ring. I spoke a little about this on my last, I think it was on my SmackDown review, that I don't think that it does Roman Reigns any favors to be in the ring with Big Show, someone that nobody really recognizes as an actual viable threat to anybody anymore, and then have him be in competitive matches selling for him, and then now he gets a loss on his hands. I just don't think that this is doing really anything to help the believability that Roman Reigns is going to the main event and that he's going to face Brock Lesnar. If WWE wants to take this route, they need to get him as far away from these kinds of matches. If you really want to build up Roman, you've got to do it against stars that the fans actually somewhat believe in. I think that I'll talk about this at the end of the show, but I think they made a choice tonight that's kind of on the right path. I don't want to go too much into it because I don't want to spoil the main event, even though it's a day later and most of us know what's going on. Just going to stick to the outline of the show. We're going to move on here. So we've got Curtis Axel coming out and making his case for his WrestleMania title shot, considering that he was never eliminated, never entered the match. Although, for those of you who do not know, it is a Royal Rumble rule. If you do not enter the match before the next competitor comes out, you are disqualified from the match. So that's something that, should have really been brought up, but it's fine. He comes out, makes kind of a, bland statement, and the commentators didn't do him any favors by basically treating it as a joke. Cue Dean Ambrose, who gets a great reaction, as he tends to these days, comes out, tosses Buddy over the top rope, and he makes a case for the Intercontinental Championship, which I thought was pretty interesting, actually, considering that there was some rumors and things going around that Dean might actually wind up in the main event of WrestleMania itself. So I don't think that this is necessarily a step down. I think, if anything, it's really good for the Intercontinental title, which needs some shine and some serious treatment. You look back to the Attitude Era days, those early 90s days. The Intercontinental Champion was a definite number 2 guy. This person could be on the verge of really taking that next step. And since, the introduction of 2 world championships, it's really been treated as kind of a back burner title. Now that you only have 1 world champion, I think that the IC title really needs to be treated with a little bit more respect, which would include, the champion not losing consistently on television all the time. So, from my smart fan, opinion, Dean Ambrose versus Bad News Barrett, it sounds great. Sounds like the promos are going to be great. They're both great talkers. They both can go in the ring. Cross your fingers that Barrett doesn't get hurt again. But I have high hopes for this. Hopefully the WWE decides to take it seriously. Moving on here. So we got Ascension versus Goldust and Stardust. You know what? Because I don't like the Ascension this much, I'm just going to say what it was. It was a squash match. Goldust and Stardust losing in about 2 minutes. But one thing that I thought was cool about this is it seems that they're starting up a Cody Rhodes or Stardust, whatever he wants to be called today, and Goldust feud. Reasons to like this: both these guys are great in-ring performers, and the Dust Brothers split has been something that had been rumored since before last year's WrestleMania. And there have been a lot of rumors going around that Goldust wants to hang up the boots pretty soon. So if they're going to try and push to get that match on the WrestleMania card, it'd be pretty sweet. I'd be down for that. Although I do hope that it means that we move away from the Stardust character, just because I really don't think it has. I don't think it's going to get anywhere. At best, it's an Intercontinental Champion gimmick, and it even seems kind of like a cheap ripoff of Goldust. So I think Cody's better than that, but that's just my 2 cents. Moving on. So we get the franchise. John Cena comes out, makes his entrance. I find that Colorado crowd was pretty tame. More cheers than boos. Has a segment, talks about the Authority. Another thing I thought was interesting is that John Cena wasn't pinned at the Royal Rumble. Seth Rollins was. Seth Rollins winds up in a chance to go to Fastlane for a number 1 contenders match. And John Cena, not only is he not there, but he doesn't have anything to say about it. Thought that was a little bit weird, uncharacteristic for him, but obviously they're trying to move Cena away from the World Championship, which I don't think any of us are really going to complain about. He welcomes back his 3 buds, Dolph Ziggler, Ryback, Eric Rowan to Raw. And then they all get booked in matches by Stephanie McMahon. So we're going to have Dolph Ziggler versus Bray Wyatt. I mean, again, another great matchup. Could be easily a pay-per-view match. Eric Rowan versus Rusev, and Ryback will be in a match against Luke Harper coming up next. I said this about SmackDown as well. I hope that these three kind of get away from each other. They don't need to be buddied up just because they were on the same Survivor Series team. But at least, they're all getting put in singles matches tonight and not in a six-man tag. So, Ryback versus Luke Harper, not much to say here. Ryback wins, pretty quick television match. A little disappointed by this one because I really, really like Luke Harper. I think he's got a great monster look and he could go in the ring. And I was hoping for a little bit more. I mean, not necessarily a non-finish, but it just seemed pretty blah to have Ryback just pin him clean 1, 2, 3. Not much to say about that. We'll see maybe if this goes into a feud for either of those guys or if it's just going to be a one-off. So we get Cesaro against Jimmy Uso. So it's a pretty good match, to be honest. Some good action. It's about 7-minute long match. The real thing to take away from this is that Cesaro gets the win over an Uso brother. I think Jimmy. Yeah. So he gets the win, which is not something that we see on TV a lot these days, is Cesaro getting a win. So it seems that WWE is on board with Cesaro and Kid as a tag team. It seems like this is a feud that we're going to go into. I hope that it goes past Fastlane. I hope we get to WrestleMania with it. And I hope that Cesaro and Kid get to have a moment together because those two guys are great wrestlers and, they deserve to have their moment on TV. We move into the big breakup angle, Mizdow and Miz. So Miz had enough finally. I think Miz is playing the egotistical movie star jerk amazing. Like, his work is definitely underrated as far as, the contribution that he's had to getting Mizdow over. I would actually say it's probably pretty comparable to Ted DiBiase and Virgil when you think about how popular Virgil was when that split happened. So what I hope happens as a result of this, I'm really curious to see how they decide to package Damian Sandow, if he goes back to being, the intellectual savior of the masses, or if they, they do something different with him, because he's getting off the chain reactions. And I would hate to see what happened to Virgil happen to him, where basically once this angle between the two of them is over, he's just dead in the water and there's just no heat on him whatsoever. And, Miz goes on to other things. So looking forward to see what is going to happen as a result of that. We'll move forward in the night we get Bray Wyatt and Dolph Ziggler. Fantastic Raw match. I'm a huge fan of any time they decide to fill television time with wrestling and not with segments. I think that when you have a 3-hour television show with pro wrestling in it, you really have to emphasize the in-ring action because that's ultimately what the product's about. It's a shame when you can have a 3-hour show and only 40 minutes of wrestling. They did a much better job tonight in that regard. This is a great match, about 15 minutes long, but Bray goes over really, really strong. And, it really seems that they're prepping Bray up for something big, cross your fingers, Undertaker, whatever it might be. But they really are putting him over strong, and he looks great doing it. We get a little segment here with Triple H and Rollins and Steph. Another little authority thing. Triple H brings up a mention about Randy Orton. So that's the first time we've really heard a mention of Randy Orton on television for a while. This led me to believe that he'd be coming back tonight, which, spoiler, didn't happen. But now that his name's been brought up, I'm thinking that we could probably expect Randy back on TV soon. And it looks like they're going to bring him back in a role against the Authority. So babyface Orton again. Let's hope that, we don't get Blandy Orton. We get kind of, more charged up, energized. I think, Orton's not on the, younger side of 30. So hopefully, this is, this could be something that's really big for him and for his career, if he can really make the most out of this next face push. And I think that, Rollins is going to be a great foil for him to go after. We get a Divas match. Again, nothing match really. The women, they get about 3 minutes to work. If they're gonna put over the Divas division as something more than just people who are on a reality TV show, they need more time in the ring. As funny as that sounds, but I mean, Paige and Alicia Fox, the match between those, they both can wrestle. They're both good. The Bella Twins have improved greatly. Natalia is a great wrestler. You have the hands there to do it, and you've got people in NXT that are putting on a great show, and fans are into it. So just a little nitpick. I'd like to see WWE spend some more time on in-ring quality with the Divas, but we'll see what happens at Fastlane in that title match between the two. We move into Miz and Sin Cara. Again, why they're still trying the Sin Cara thing when the actual performer is long, long gone, I don't know. But Mizdow causes a distraction. Miz gets pinned, and then that's it. That's the split. So we'll see what happens on SmackDown. Probably we're going to see a little bit of something, or we're going to see the big, new and improved Sandow on Raw. We get a Lana Rusev segment. Kind of funny here. The flag did not actually work. They handled it great, though. They looked... I don't think they were legitimately pissed off, but they looked enough, pissed off. And good save by Michael Cole saying maybe John Cena had something to do with it. Again, playing into the feud that those guys are having. Lana looks great as always. Again, she does wonders for Rusev and, keeping him on the line of being a big... foreign enemy, monster. So not much to say, though. In fact, the match actually didn't happen between him and Eric Rowan. Just Rusev kind of, beat him up and squashed him. It's the way to go with him, though, especially, what we know of John Cena, right? You've got to make Rusev look vicious and strong and all that other stuff because, people have a hard time believing John Cena's ever going to lose. So you really need to get that heat on Rusev. All right. So here we go. Main event time. But before that, we have a little bit of a segment with Roman Reigns and Daniel Bryan in Roman's locker room. The thing that I thought was weird about this was I thought that Roman came off as kind of a dick, to be honest. Daniel Bryan, he's got the look. He's always a nice guy. He just comes across as nice and patient and understanding and reasonable. And, it seems like he's really trying to pump up the fact that, him and Roman are going to have this great match at Fastlane. Better man wins. And Roman's just kind of being a dick and, telling him he doesn't care and, to get out. So I don't think it's really the best way to, again, you want Roman to be your big, awesome face of the company, and he's being a jerk to the guy who's clearly the most popular. I know they're trying to go with, Roman is, he stands alone and, doing that kind of thing, but I just think that there's probably a better way you could have worded that. So anyway, we go into our main event. Again, fantastic match between these guys, which I think if it wasn't a fantastic match, you might be asking what the heck is wrong with either of them. Playing in all the storyline factors of the Authority, Daniel Bryan. We get some interference by Roman Reigns towards the end. But Daniel Bryan ultimately gets the win. So we've got our main event set for Fastlane. It's going to be Daniel Bryan versus Roman Reigns. The winner goes on to WrestleMania to fight Brock Lesnar for the WWE World Heavyweight Championship. The show actually ends with Triple H kind of hyping up the podcast, which I might break down in a different video. But let's talk about the fallout here. So what do we pull away from what happened on Monday Night Raw yesterday? We have a new main event. That's a big thing to pull away from that. We got Daniel Bryan versus Roman Reigns. We got a potential Intercontinental title feud between Dean Ambrose and Bad News Barrett. We've got Mizdow finally, he didn't split off. He just got dumped off by Miz. So we've got that feud kicking up. Rusev, John Cena is in full swing. And we've got Bray making some really cryptic messages going on. What's that going to come to fruition with? Where are we going with this? I liked everything that they set up on this show, except for one thing. and that is the Roman Reigns Daniel Bryan match. The reason I have a problem with it is not because I dislike either guy. It's just because, again, I don't feel like I know they've done this in the past and gotten a way around it. They did this with, I think, when Rey Mysterio won the Royal Rumble for the first time, and he was getting some heat for the fact that, or at least from the adult male crowd, he was getting a little bit of heat from the crowds about, being small, and how this was only because of Eddie's passing that he was getting this opportunity. They decided to do a match between him and Orton at No Way Out, I believe. And Orton wound up winning that match in devilish manner, right? But I don't like when they mess with the Royal Rumble winner. They mess with the validity of that number one contendership spot. I think it would have been better served if you do Daniel Bryan versus Seth Rollins at the pay-per-view for a chance to be added into the match. But I don't like that they're essentially saying that, hey, you know what? Yeah, Daniel Bryan might still go, and they're basically pumping up the hope spot for all those Daniel Bryan fans that there's still a chance that he's going to wind up being in the main event. I don't like it for that reason. I also don't like it because you have the guy you want to be your face of the company going up against the guy who is your most popular star in the company. I will be very interested to see how they can get out of this one without the crowd booing the absolute hell out of Roman Reigns again, because they put them in a situation where we got face versus face. The crowd's going to have to choose who they want to win. You're not going to get a 50-50 split with Daniel Bryan and Roman Reigns. They're going to pick Daniel Bryan. So it'll be interesting to see how they work around that. The one way I think they can work around it, Daniel Bryan is a great worker. And if he can have a 25, 30-minute absolute wrestling clinic with Roman Reigns, and they go back and forth, and Daniel Bryan comes up just this much short, and Reigns goes over, and they have that moment in the ring where they shake hands, and Bryan says, basically give him hell, you're the better man. I think that can work. But if you can't get a good match out of Roman Reigns with Daniel Bryan as the guy, I don't want to say carrying because that discredits Roman's, ability in the ring, but in this situation, that might be the word you have to use. If you can't get a great match there, then I think at that point Roman's pretty much dead in the water, and your match at WrestleMania is going to be a real dud because the in-ring quality is not going to be there. The fans aren't going to buy into Roman, and you're going to have a real issue on your hands. There's two ways Roman can go, in my opinion. He can either be the John Cena, or he could be the Batista. What I mean by that is that coming out of the 2005 Rumble, we had John Cena as the face of SmackDown, Batista as the face of Raw. I would argue that Batista was actually the more popular of the two, but when it came down to it, at the end of the day, John Cena has proven time and time again that he can have great wrestling matches. He can tell great stories. He's got a 5-star match under his belt, CM Punk, Money in the Bank, 2011. He's been in an hour-long match with Shawn Michaels, and his diversity alone has allowed him to get to where he is, whereas Batista never could pump out that in-ring quality that Cena could. He was a big dude. He had a great look. People were energized when he came out. But, that was pretty much where it stopped with Batista when you think about it. And, he had a good heel run at the end, but really he was in limbo for a lot of that time, in between, the Triple H feud that he got out of, and then, going to that heel run. He had a good run with Edge. But other than that, it was kind of, or sorry, I shouldn't discredit his feud with The Undertaker either. But, he never got to that level. So I think that you got to be careful with, Roman and understanding what he is, because he's got to show something in the ring, or he's just going to be that silent killer, Batista type character that ultimately is not going to deliver the in-ring product that you need to, get the network buys and pay-per-view buys and all that other stuff. I could probably make a whole video on that opinion. Well, it might actually wind up doing that later this week. But if you guys listen to the whole video or even little snippets, thanks for tuning in. You guys will hear from me on Friday after SmackDown. I hope to make a video this week on the Triple H podcast because there's some really interesting stuff that came out of there. overall, how would I score this Raw? It was pretty good. I'd say it's probably a 7 out of 10. It's probably one of the better Raws that I've watched in, the last probably 2-3 months. It wasn't quite the Raw reunion show, but there's some good in-ring action, some good setup. Obviously, WrestleMania season is in full swing now, and we have a main event to the pay-per-view. So thanks for tuning in. Make sure you guys hit the like and subscribe buttons. Follow me on Twitter. Feel free to leave me any personal messages or tweet me out. Love chatting wrestling, love chatting, especially this season. This is the best time to talk about wrestling because the opinions are rampant. There's obviously going to be a lot of debate going on. Love to be part of it. So thanks for tuning in, guys. Cheers.